All right, it is time for the quarter one check-in. Normally I go way into stats and stuff like that, and I do have some stats to talk about. Nothing as in-depth as normal. And at the end, we're gonna go through like my top books of the year, and we're casually checking in. We're seeing how are we doing. I didn't really look at my goals video, so whatever goals I'm reflecting on are just like what were at the top of my head. I guess halfway through the year, we'll really check in and see, Angela, what are you doing? But that's what this video is going to be. Just casual quarterly check-in. Is this reading year going well? I think it is. Question mark. I don't think I have had too many regrets, which is probably how I'm measuring it in, because I don't necessarily think this has been an amazing quality year so far. I don't think actually, I know I don't have that many new 5-star reads. I know. Putting together my favorites of the quarter that are new reads was really hard for me. And maybe part of why my reading year doesn't feel bad is I've been rereading a lot, which we'll also discuss. So, I don't know. It's not bad. I mean, I'm DNFing. I've DNF'd 2 books. I probably could DNF a tiny bit more, but at least I'm doing it. I normally don't. So, yeah, and I've also been committing to projects. I have 2 secret projects I did this year, which wasn't in my plans for 2023, but they've been really fun. So I've had 2 video ideas where I was purposefully reading things that aren't in my wheelhouse. One is for the Young Adult Goodreads Choice Awards winner, and one was reading Babel and Legends and Lattes. And, in general, I have no regrets about those projects, but there were definitely a lot of books in those projects that weren't amazing reads for me. They weren't the highest quality. None of the books from any of those projects were 5 stars, and they were a large part of my reading life. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at so far this year. I think I am doing better at balancing my free time, which was a big thing I wanted to do going into this year. I was definitely starting to feel booktube burnout. So I've cut down to just 2 videos a week. Most of the time has been really good for me. I'm still reading about as much as I usually do. I think this year I'm hoping I only read 130 books, and I'm definitely on track for that, whereas last year I think I read 170 or something. So I'm back to 2 years ago reading speed, which I think is better for me. It gives me more time for watching TV, watching movies with Ryan, hanging out with just enjoying my time, right? Playing video games. I did finish a video game. That was one of my goals. So that was a goal. I knew I wanted to finish 1 or 2 video games, and I've at least finished 1. So that's a thing. So yeah, stats. Let's just get into a couple stats. In general, how many books did I read this quarter so far? 33. I like that. That's a good number. I don't know. I like things that are divisible by 3, and there are 2 3s in it. It's a good number. My average rating has been a 3.9, and I think that makes sense. I think that reflects the fact that on average, a lot of the stuff I'm reading feel average to me at the moment. I don't have a lot of standouts, and I don't think I'm that aggressive of a rater. I do think if I like it, you're pretty much going to get a 4 or a 4.5 from me. Those I give out pretty easily, even 3.5s. I think 3.5, 4, and 4.5 are my most given ratings. I can actually probably show you a chart here. Here, you could have a chart right here. I definitely do think those are the quadrants I give the most. Also keep in mind, this chart I'm showing you includes the rereads. So when we discuss my favorites and I'm I only have 2 new 5 stars. I know there's more 5 stars here, but those were rereads. So yeah, 33 read. If you care about the format we are in, we have 5 print, 9 ebooks, 12 audiobooks, and 7 that were a mix of things. And what I mean by that is audio and physically reading, whether that was with Kindle or physical book. I didn't feel to get that picky in it, so definitely leaning a lot on audiobooks earlier this year, especially for that Goodreads project. And then I had 4 rereads, so 4 of the 33 were rereads, and like I already said, 2 DNFs. So that's how I was reading things. And then genre breakdown, we had 9 fantasy books, 6 sci-fi, 3 horror, 3 literary, and 2 nonfiction. So pretty good spread there. I could stand to definitely read more sci-fi, but also the fantasy number is very inflated from all the series that I read for the Goodreads Choice Awards video. I read so many fantasy books for that. So that definitely does scale things around. What I am happy about is my author breakdown is still doing well. At least the way I look at my author breakdown for stats is I only count each author once. I don't count an author multiple times, so in theory, this might look really different if I counted Cassandra Clare and Holly Black for every single book that I had read from them. But I basically just say, I read 33 books, but I think I only read from, let me do math real quick, 16 plus 5, 21 authors. So I've only read from 21 authors this year, but I've read 33 books because a lot of them were in series by one author. And in that breakdown of 21 authors, 8 of them have been men, 8 women, 3 non-binary, and 2 were books by multiple authors, like anthologies and the like. And, for once, I'm more even on my male to female ratio, which is usually really bad. So that's pretty great, and I've already read 3 non-binary authors this year, which makes me happy. And I'm still meeting my expectations for myself of authors of colors versus white authors. And again, if you're new here, my author of color ratio is very broad. I'm just, if you're not white. So it's a very broad definition. So 12 authors are authors of color and 8 were white. So generally, checking in, everything's looking okay. I've already been starting to read a bit more sci-fi and horror because I do like putting that into my reading. I think a lot of my highlights have actually been outside of fantasy. Fantasy has not been hitting outside of the reread space for me like I would like it to. And that's, we're going to get into my favorites. So I wrote down everything that I gave 4.5 stars and up. And then I looked at some of them, like, actually, were you 4.5 stars? And I made some of them 4. And so we're going to talk about 8 books. And what I do notice, and this is the thing I talk about in my How I Rate Books video and stuff like that, and I do think it generally comes across as me as a reader, but in case you were wondering, something becomes a favorite for me or becomes a highly rated book because it makes me want to read it, because I enjoy the reading experience, and there's a whole host of factors that go into that, right? And like sometimes, I know people do the call pile system and a whole bunch of stuff. For me, it's a gut feeling of like, I only wanted to be reading this book when it was the week I was reading this book. And a lot of books haven't been doing that for me this year. They haven't been bad reading experiences, but in terms of like escape into a book, no, I've been missing that. But these ones I'm going to mention, I'm pretty sure all of them except for one on this list, and we'll talk about that one first because it definitely deserves to be like a highlight of this quarter. I actually spent almost all of this quarter reading it, but I wouldn't say it was fun, and that is Open Veins of Latin America. This is just a nonfiction book that is very intimidating that I'm glad I finally read. I buddy read it with my friend Jocelyn, and we took many breaks while reading this book. But outside of like reading for enjoyment, reading for knowledge, this was really good for me. Really helped me frame a lot of stuff, really helped me answer questions that I've always had in my head. And also by an Uruguayan author, it helps me with translated work. It helps with my goal of reading a book from every country in South America. Yeah, this was a standout work. I do wish it was more conversational than it is, but I also understand that wasn't the purpose of the nonfiction. You can't want a nonfiction book to be a different project than it is. So sometimes I did get bogged down in the names and the places and the facts. And also part of his method of getting points across was showing repetition. Not repetition in terms of phrases, but there were cyclical patterns happening in South America with their resources over hundreds and hundreds of years. And as a reader, you're just like, oh, the same thing's happening again. And it's happening again. And maybe the names and the faces change, right? Different players, different time, different resource. But the song and dance is the same. And I think that repetitiveness is important to get the point across, but it's also exhausting in a work that was already kind of dense and exhausting, So this isn't here because of enjoyment, but it's definitely a standout read that I spent most of the quarter consuming, and I'm really proud of myself for doing it. It was hard. This is one of the most challenging things I've ever consumed. The rest of these, though, were books that reminded me that I'm a bookworm, okay? That's what this list is. And we're just going to go in order of when I read them roughly. And actually, you can tell that I love so many of these because I actually do have a stack of most of the books that we're going to talk about. So I might go back and forth if I show you the book or put up a picture. I never know. Because sometimes I feel like it's easier to see pictures when I put them on the screen, for you guys as viewers. If you ever have strong opinions, let me know. But the first one we're going to talk about was The Faithless by C.L. Clarke. So, I love this book, this world, and I think it comes down to C.L. Clarke writes character interactions and scenes and political tensions in a way that my brain is latched onto. I cannot let go. And I love Turenne, and I love Luca. Well, love Luca. I love the messiness Luca brings to the table. But Turenne I love whole heart. I love Turenne's mother. I love Turenne's best friend. I love all these characters, okay? And I am really interested in where we are going after this book. If you wanted something more politically based than The Unbroken, because The Unbroken is more kind of rebellion focused, this is pretty fantastic in that regard. It's really hard for me to talk about The Faithless because I truly feel like I would spoil The Unbroken by telling you what is happening here. But basically, we pick up where The Unbroken leaves off. We keep answering messy questions, and then at the end of this book, it's well, how are we going to handle what's happening next? And we do get a few more answers to questions about magic, and yeah, it's fantastic. Basically, if you've already liked The Unbroken, The Faithless is going to be a fantastic time for you. You know, some moments are a little slow burn, the pacing's not perfect or anything like that, but I just love these characters. And that's another thing, is like, there aren't many characters that have been sticking out to me lately, but like Taren, I love her. I love her so much. The next one I will talk about is probably my favorite book of the year. I know we weren't ranking things, but if I look at it, I only had 2 new 5 stars, and of the 2 5 stars, I think I like this one more, and that's Girl, Woman, Other. Ugh. I have talked about this in the wrap-up for the book, maybe the Friday reads, but I read this in a high anxiety week. Like, the day I picked this up, I was spiraling really hard, couldn't focus on work, couldn't focus on anything. And the only reason I, like, even opened it was because I had to read it for my book club. Like, I always start the book a week before I need to read it, so it's just like, well, you gotta get it done. And I was also going to get on a train, and trains are great for me because they are the time where I can reset because there's nothing else to do normally. Like, I could be on my phone, but I don't find a lot of joy on my phone. My phone's an okay place, but it's not, like, super fun. I purposefully don't have, like, phone games on it or anything. And this book helped me escape my anxiety. And I think it's just because of the writing style. Like, the stories themselves are not, like, calming. Like, we have a whole host of stories in here about different women and their backgrounds, specifically Black women in, I think, Britain. Like Great Britain specifically, but they all have diverse ethnic backgrounds from different points in the 20th century, so you're going to see many different types of stories. You have different socioeconomic backgrounds and stuff like that, and they are all interconnected. It's like that interconnected short story style that I eat up that is, like, tailor-made for me. So I kind of should have known that it would work, but then also just the author's writing style, just the flow of the words. That's probably what calmed me down. I just was like, in the sentences, and the flow from sentence to sentence just clicked in my brain, and I eat up these types of things, and all of the characters in this were both somehow easy to, like, root for and follow, and sometimes equally really flawed humans. It's like, I like you as a character, but that's a really flawed thing you are thinking and responding and doing. And so the messiness of the human experience, how things tied together, and then a fantastic book club discussion on this. One of my favorite reads of the year. So yeah, nowhere near fantasy, but here we are. The next one is a fantasy, is Byronian Roses. This one probably I will put an image up because it's a little shiny. This is T. Kingfisher. So before this, I kind of knew T. Kingfisher feels like a favorite author. Feels like whenever I read T. Kingfisher, I'm going to have a great time. And this solidified it. This is one of their first books under this pen name. And it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And in some ways, it's a standard Beauty and the Beast retelling. Nothing too fancy. But in other ways, it's like, this house is really creepy. What is happening with this house? And I love creepy houses, okay? So I love creepy houses, and that's like a really fun intrigue. And then I love the coziness of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And the banter that T. Kingfisher brings to the page is phenomenal. So that was a really fun time. Read that in like 24 hours. It was a blast. Like, I remember sitting at work being like, oh, I just want to read this book. And I love that feeling of having something to look forward to after work. Like, phenomenal. This next one I read actually pretty much right after Byronian Roses, and that is Lone Woman by Victor Laval. I just think this was expertly done. I just really like all the decisions he made. Like, was it a 5-star read from me? No. But, like, I don't actually know what I would change. It's just, maybe if I just read it at a different time, it would have been 5 stars, right? Like that kind of nebulous X Factor thing. But I really like this. It's a historical horror. We have Adelaide. When you open up, the scene is her cleaning up the blood on her farm and, like, putting it on fire, and her parents are dead, and she's about to head to Montana with this chest. That's all you know. And, like, what a cold open. Like, whoa. And then she goes to Montana to homestead. And I love homesteading stories. I don't know why. There's probably something about when growing up reading Little House on the Prairie or something like that. Like, I like survival stories. I am drawn to that. I'm drawn to a person on their own needing to get by and form a community. That's the thing I like. And that's what happens to Adelaide. She ends up in this part of Montana, and she has to get to know some of the other women around and form bonds. And then there's still this mystery of why did you do this? What's in the box? And so you kind of have these two kind of intrigues for me, is like the community building and also what's in the box. And I thought both were handled really well. If you've never read a Victor Laval, although it's going to feel familiar, it's also going to not feel familiar because he doesn't pace in a familiar way. He uses a lot of familiar tropes and ideas, but he doesn't necessarily dole it out in a way that you're expecting. I love the title of this book. The title is perfect, and I loved all the people we got to meet, and I love a lot about it. Like, why wasn't it 5 stars? It's because, like, in the moment of reading it, sometimes I would be distracted and not want to be reading it as much. But on thinking about it, on recommending it to people, I can't recommend it highly enough. Like, I really like this. If you can handle graphic violence and gore, you should try this book out. Because that's the part where it's kind of horror. It's not, like, creepy or unsettling, but it is violent and graphic. And, like, some of the societal commentary is horrifying. And if you want diverse historical representation in your works, he brought that. This is fantastic. If you want your historical fiction to have people in it that definitely existed in the past but we never read about, also pick it up for that. This is just so good. I will read anything by Victor LaValle, that's for sure. I don't know if he'll ever be like a favorite, but between this and The Changeling, I'm here to read anything he classifies as horror, for sure. Up next is my other 5-star read, and if you watch my March wrap-up, this isn't surprising, and that's The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, who is a favorite author. So this was not surprising to me. I am surprised every time I love one of her books as much as I do, mainly because they're very slice of life. They're not very plot-driven. They're very character and community-focused, which maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I love those things. Whenever I talk about books, those are the things that I latch onto. The main character of The Sentence is phenomenal, full of sass and a rich history and a messy family, and you get to see all of that, but also look at 2020, and I think it's a great book to capture a lot of what was happening in 2020, and I'm so glad that my favorite author kind of chronicalized that. So yeah, I mean, I can see it not being for everyone, but for me, I was definitely far enough away from 2020 that it felt cathartic. And it was also just a fantastic book within its own right for me because my favorite author was writing characters, and I love that. And I was just easily able to ignore the fact that I was on a plane for hours because I had this book, and all I wanted to do was read the book, right? That's the theme of this list. Books that I was just like, yeah, I just want to read you. You are great. Up next, Legends and Lattes, which I wasn't expecting to be on this list. I mean, I was hoping when I picked it up, but I read this in a day. And I read it in a day where I needed an escape, and it delivered. And, you know, I am always happy to have a book that helps me escape. And so that's why it's on the list. Legends and Lattes, you helped me out. I am really, appreciative of it. I don't know if I'll ever revisit it. I don't think anything's particularly strong in my head other than it was comfortable for me. It was comfort food. Because I was just watching people come together and build something from the ground up, and they were competent at it, and they were problem solving, and sometimes it's nice to just see that. And, it didn't overstay its welcome. It's like 250 pages. It was great. I will definitely be reading more from this author whenever I'm in the headspace where it's just like, I need a book I can read in a day that helps me forget the fact that I'm anxious out of my mind, because I was anxious out of my mind when I read this book. Like, truly, I came back from my vacation, and it's like the minute I got through customs at JFK, it was just hit with a wall of anxiety, just like in the face. And then the last book we'll talk about is another T. Kingfisher, and this is A House with Good Bones. And this is a lot like Lone Woman, where, like, when I finished it, I was like, oh, this isn't a 5-star read, but it was fun. And then, like, as I, spend more time away from it, I'm like, that was really good. I have so many fond memories. And, like, I love this decision, and that is what's happening with this book. And I even actually just got a copy recently, and I really like it. The copy makes me happy. I like looking at it. I was told, in case you were wondering, by one of my friends, that this is not the actual vulture type that's in the book. But I still like the outline of it. So, I'm going to pretend this is Hermes. I have no reason to believe that this is Hermes in the book, but that's what I'm choosing to believe. And that's like a thing. I love Hermes. Hermes is a vulture in the book. That's adorable. I love that T. Kingfisher always makes me care about the animals that are named and put into the stories. I really liked Samantha and her relationship with her mother. I thought that was so wholesome and lovely. Like, to see someone who's close to my age, like Samantha's like 32, 33, traveling home to have to stay with her mom because the job she was working kind of fell through and she already sublet her apartment, so she's got to stay with her mom for a while, and they just have this good relationship, and it's just kind of nice to spend time with your mom. I love that. I do that all the time. And like Samantha is also, she's a fat woman who's like totally fine with being fat. She's a nerd who, like, her thing is being an anthropologist who studies bugs and stuff like that. And her brain is just a funny place. I just enjoyed being in her brain. So I really enjoyed Samantha. She was a really fun character to follow. And because of this coziness factor of her and her mom, I think it was a very comfortable read for me, even though it's a horror. Like, it's a haunted house, and it's a creepy haunted house, and there's definitely some unsettling things, especially at the end. The end has a lot of tension and creep and ick. But at the same time, it was also very comfortable to me. It was very monster of the week, kind of. And, like, you do spend a week with this character, and there is this repetitive cycle of each day that Samantha and her mom go through that was very comfortable for me, very procedural, formulaic almost. And I find comfort in that. Like, those are the things I like from cozy mysteries. So maybe I just need cozy horror. Like, that might just be a thing that I need the world to start publishing more. Or if it is published in, like, the indie space or whatever, someone point me that way. Because if you've read other horrors like this that aren't written by T. Kingfisher, because I'm already going to read everything by T. Kingfisher, like, that's just going to happen, let me know. Because I really liked this book. And the more I think about it, the more I really like it. And that I want to reread it next time I'm, like, on a plane. Like, I can already imagine myself rereading this book and having a phenomenal time. Because, like, although the horror stuff was, like, fun and, like, good to, like, have there, I just liked these people and hanging out with them. And that's how I feel every time I read a T. Kingfisher. It's like, I just want to hang out with those characters again. So, although I wouldn't say this quarter's been, like, a big win, what I have read, I think I've really liked. And on a whole, I've liked the projects I've been doing. I've liked where I've challenged myself. I'm making space for other hobbies. So, I don't think I need to course correct. But I do hope some books start hitting more. Like, I would like to have more undeniable 5-star reads. Like, truly. I don't know where they are. I don't know how to find them. But I just need it to happen. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just too harsh right now. But, like, truly, I just want books that engage me. That's all I want. Let me know what have been your highlights of the quarter. What has really stuck out for you? I didn't want to go into disappointments or worse yet because there actually weren't that many. I wrote them down. There were only like a handful, and I'm like, I'll just save that for the end of the year video. It's not important right now. So, like I said, in general, I had way more favorites to talk about than disappointments. So we're doing okay. We're definitely just in the territory of I just wish we had less okay things that I've been consuming. Don't know how to do that, but I would just like there to be more stupendous and less, that was pretty good, you know? Who knows? And if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, leave a ladybug. If you know, you know. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.